everybody, and very happy to share a little bit of insight into the art of selling this evening. So this is us, Shesaid.Design, and this is our presentation on the art of selling. I'm sure there will be tons of questions. So as I said, I'm one half of Shesaid. My business partner is Christine McKee, and we created Shesaid out of a passion for honest, thoughtful design, and really we're about a conversation between you, our client, and us. We like to get under your skin, understand what makes you tick, know what you want to say, and communicate your story in a bespoke and visually engaging way. So our ethos is all about listening to our clients. This presentation is about the art of selling. So the first part of selling is finding your customers. So this is about getting in front of potential customers. So I don't know what stage a lot of you're at in terms of your business or the services that you provide, but from what I can gather, a lot of you are in the creative industries. So what I'm going to share with you is our experience that we've built up over years. Although we've been going for 3 years, we've been in the design industry for 20 years almost, so a long time. And really, whenever we first started, I freelanced before setting up Shesaid and ran another business for years as well. But I think the first point for any of you who are starting out is really to try and identify the clients that you want to work with. So if you have, particular passion in a certain sector like the arts or charity or whatever, try and identify those types of clients that you feel that you have a resonance with and the type of work that they're doing that you feel a real connection with and that you would like to work with. And really it's about just, writing down who those types of clients are, figuring out how many there are in your local area, and just making a list of all the people that you would like to work with, and making that your kind of starting point. The next big thing is to figure out what your point of difference is. So here we've got all the fish going in one direction, and this is you going in your own direction. And your point of difference is what makes you different from everybody else in your field. Why would a client choose you over somebody else? And what's your kind of unique selling point? So what makes your offering more desirable than somebody else's? And that's really about kind of finding out what your niche is. So if you think, oh, I'm a graphic designer, I do X, Y, and Z. It's really about thinking about what you're really good at or what you're really passionate about, and honing in on that and identifying that with the client list that you've built up and thinking, what do they actually need and what special services do I have that I can offer to them? So the next point after that, is about having all of your selling platforms branded and ready to rock. So that's everything from your social media channels to your website, to your emails, to all of your internal documents, having everything really well branded and ready to go so that your message is clear to your audience that you want to sell to. And that's about having your brand story together as well. What is the story of you? What is the story of your business? What's the language that you're using whenever you're communicating to people? Really thinking about the real detail of everything, and thinking from a customer point of view, not necessarily how you want to see yourself, but how your customer is going to arrive on your website or your social channels and see you and think, what can I get out of this? And then the next the most important part, I think, of getting in front of potential customers is kind of getting out there and selling yourself, whether that's by picking up the phone and calling, DMing people on social channels, emailing, writing an old-fashioned letter, which could be quite refreshing instead of getting an email or a DM on social media. That could be a nice point of difference for you. Tweeting, networking. I cannot stress how important networking is. It's really enabled our business to grow. Womenfolk has been an amazing network for us to network in and meet other like-minded females. Belfast Design Week is an amazing networking kind of arena to meet other designers and creatives. There's other like women in business, all sorts of Belfast City Council run amazing business-to-business networking events. So it's really about finding out what networking or events are on within your kind of sphere or your area and connecting yourself up with those. And nothing beats like a good face-to-face meeting with somebody whenever we can do that again. I know we're doing everything kind of virtually at the minute, but actually meeting somebody in person and them getting a sense of you and you getting a sense of them, there's a chemistry there. And that is a really essential part of kind of finding a customer and thinking, do you know what, we click, we're going to get on and we're going to be able to do some work together. So that's a little bit about getting in front of potential customers. So how to present yourself and your business. These are all quite, well, first one here, little lipstick, put your best foot forward. It really is about, for us anyhow, about kind of presenting yourself in the best way and really putting the best of yourself forward towards potential clients and, kind of being proud of who you are, not trying not to be too shy, just thinking, do you know what, doesn't matter, just put yourself forward and show somebody the best of you. And, that does include, well, for Christine and I, we're like, quick, get a bit of lippy on. We've got to, go to a meeting. It might seem a bit sexist or whatever, but it's kind of something that we do that kind of helps us think, right, do you know what, we're kind of ready to meet a client here. In terms of presenting yourself, I think it's so important to educate yourself about your clients' businesses. So whether that's one particular client that you want to work with or a range of clients, it's to kind of really embed yourself in their field and what they do, because there's nothing worse than somebody prospecting to you and not having a clue about what you do. We find the most successful relationships that we've had with clients are ones where we've really gotten under their skin, understand how their business works, understand them, understand their culture, their values, doing the research if it's a new area. We sometimes call it like kind of plugging into the matrix. You're kind of trying to learn a new language if you're trying to understand a new client and their area business. So that is so important, because if your client feels that you understand them, then you're on to a winner. Talk the talk and walk the walk. Might sound like you're bluffing, but there is a wee bit of impromptu kind of doing things on the hoof a little bit, but you have to kind of speak their language and walk in their shoes, and that's what that's about. You in this job, when you're selling your business and selling your services, your creative services, you do have to talk the talk and walk the walk. There's no two ways about it. So techniques for becoming confident. I'm probably doing a good job of pretending to be confident here, but I'm actually find these things quite daunting and nerve-wracking getting up to speak. But anyhow, got to just get on and do it. But I think a lot of things bring about confidence. I think knowledge brings about confidence for everything that I've just talked about. Knowing what it is that you do, knowing what it is that your client does, brings confidence. Years of experience bring confidence too. I'm a much more confident person now than I was 10, 15 years ago. And that's purely just comes with experience, going through job after job, working through different types of clients And all of that, the knowledge and experience that brings, gives you confidence. Now, I know maybe for a lot of people just starting out, there may not be too much experience, but you do have the ability to make yourself knowledgeable and be confident in the knowledge that you do have, because you know an awful lot more about what you do than your customer does. So never be in doubt about your confidence in that. Training, I cannot stress how important training is. Like, we constantly have to train ourselves. So it might be further training in your actual field, and, you know, software, things are changing and developing so rapidly, platforms are changing, you know, so training in all of those kind of aspects. But maybe from a business point of view as well, it's really important to get some training on that side of things too. So there's lots of free business programs with Belfast City Council, training with the likes of Womenfolk and whatever. It's really, really important just to keep yourself abreast of that and find out what's going on. And actually, when you've find that you've had some more training in some of those areas, it'll give you confidence too. Because a lot of the time, you know, you're not a natural seller. You've come into your business because of your passion for design and creativity, but you haven't got a clue how to send an invoice or how to do a proposal, or you know, do a big pricing schedule. But you know, experience and training and all of that will help build up your confidence. Peers will definitely give you confidence. Peers and colleagues. You know, Christine and I bounce stuff off each other all the time. We have a small team of creatives that work with us as well. And really having somebody or a team or friends to bounce things off is so important. So I know Womenfolk is an amazing forum for doing that too. So if you work alone, you know, find yourself a creative buddy, a little network that you can bounce stuff off. And you don't have to be kind of precious about your designs or whatever, or your creativity, but it's about kind of letting go a little bit and just sharing your stuff with other people, and you'll get so much back, because you'll be able to give them feedback, they'll give you feedback, and you'll be a lot more confident then too. And also the networking peers will give confidence as well. And just lastly, is just belief in yourself will give you confidence. You know, belief can be a massive kind of stumbling block, but if you believe in yourself and you portray that, then other people will believe in you too. So that's what that's about. Money, navigating money. Oh my God, what a minefield. I have been doing this for a long, long time, and there is no clear cut answer. And it just shifts all the time. But I think the number one thing is that it can be fluid with your clients. You don't have to say that my rate is X amount of pounds and I'm not deviating from that. I think you have to be fluid and open to the types of clients that you want to work with. And the primary number one question is, if somebody approaches you or you approach them to do a piece of work, it's like, well, what budget do you have to spend? Budget is so important. And people can be embarrassed about talking about money, but at the end of the day, we're not doing this for fresh air. We're doing it out of a love for creativity, but the end goal is to kind of put a roof over our head and food on our table. And that's why getting the money embarrassing stage over is so important. So asking what is the budget with your client is the number one question. And I would always do that every time, instead of saying, well, look, this is going to cost you X amount of pounds, and then the client goes and has a heart attack. You know, you're better off starting with the question to them, what is your budget? How much have you got to play with? And from that, you can say, well, after that, you can say, well, what's the kind of remit of the project? What are your expected outcomes? And from that, you can start to break down the project and say, well, that particular project is going to take me a solid week's work. And I think that your budget might be a little tight, but what I could offer to do is give you X, Y, and Z for that budget and see how we go with that. And if that's successful, then we can move on to phase 2, where you maybe secure a little bit more budget and work in that way. So in terms of being fluid and flexible, it's about forming a financial arrangement with your client, whereby you can do things in stages and say, well, we can do X and Y for this, and work it like that. So working out your rate is always a killer too, but there is a little bit of a kind of an equation around how to get to it. So your hourly or your daily rate could be your desired wage. So if you've come from an existing job and you need X amount of pounds per month to live, then that's your kind of desired wage. But you can't forget about overheads. And that could be rent. Operating costs and overheads are really important to remember. So that could be your kind of software subscriptions, all of your kind of direct debits in relation to your business, any overheads, printing costs, subcontractors. You've got to think about all of those things coming in too. So, and also the one thing that you should never forget about is taxes, because you always need to keep kind of 30% of whatever you take for the taxman. It depends whether you're VAT registered or not. But yeah, you'll always get a tax bill at the end of the day, and you do not want to be crying on the 31st of January when your bank account's empty and your accountant says to you, your bill is X, and you just want to cry. So I'm hesitant to talk about exact figures on rates, because a lot of it depends on experience, things like that, and the type of work that you're selling as well. So you can also tier your rates, and we do this. We've got a low, medium, and high rate. So, for example, for charity-based clients, we would have a lower rate for them. For medium clients, we would have a kind of standard rate for them. And then we've got a higher rate as well for clients who require a really kind of detailed, in-depth level of service, and that could be done work that's condensed into a really short time frame, or a project that really does require a really high level of skill and work. And that's when we would bring that kind of higher rate into play. So you can do it per level, per the sector that you're in, or by the level of work. If you know that it's going to be a really easy job and doesn't require a huge amount of brain power, you can have, for example, an hour working rate, and a design rate, and then a creative director rate, depending on the kind of level of work as well. So that's two ways to look at it. Look at it by the sector you're in, or by the type of work that you're doing. And then navigating money, always value your work and always value yourself, because you can't say, oh, sure, give me 20 quid for that, that'll do. And you have worked late nights for a whole week just to do that for a client. You're going to end up just in a bundle of tears and think, why did I do that? It really was not worth it. I got nothing out of it financially. The client didn't appreciate it because I only charged them 20 quid for it and they ran to the hills with it. So it really is about kind of valuing your work and also valuing yourself and realising the effort and time and everything that you put into your work too. Getting paid. God, I feel like this is a school lesson here with going through this, but okay. So getting paid, because I hated all this stuff, and I actually, it's the least enjoyable part of our work, but it's the most important part, because, if you don't get paid, that's it, game over. So yeah, setting up a good accounting system is so important. We use Sage accounting with our accountants, and it's just really easy for going on and generating invoices, making sure that you set out your payment terms, and make sure that your client knows that at the outset of a job. So we would always, at the first point of contact with the client, we would say, oh yeah, that brief sounds great. So what we'll do now is we'll go away and price that for you. We've got a rough idea of your budget. We'll price out exactly what we can do for you within that amount of money, the dates that we'll do it by, and also where we're VAT registered. There'll be costs for X, Y, and Z. Or you do an all-inclusive price. But also what you do is really important to say that, you know, we require payment within 30 days of the invoice being set out. And it's really just about getting those kind of terms out there. And then if the 30th of the month arrives and you haven't been paid, send out the reminder that day. And very nicely just say, hi, how's it going? This invoice is overdue. Just checking if you're paying it today. And hopefully they'll go, oh yeah, great, I'll hop on now and pay that for you. But if you're still sitting there a week, 2 weeks later, you know, give them a ring. In fact, even a few days later, you know, give them a ring and say, do you know what? Say the client's called John. John, we haven't got payment on that. Can you sort that out for us? Because, you know, it's going to create a cash flow issue for us. And we agreed at the start of the project that you would pay us within the 30 days. Whenever I first started out, I had a mentor called Rosie Kirker, an amazing woman who unfortunately is no longer here, but she was amazing. And I remember doing my first really big project for a client, and I hadn't got paid, and the 30 days had gone, and we were probably into maybe about coming up close to 60 days, and I was starting to fret, and I had a meeting with her, and she said, Lisa, for God's sake, that's your money, you worked really hard for that. Pick up the phone now while we're here having this chat, ring them and say that you're in town, that you're going to call round, and can they write you a check and or make the payment by, you know, transfer. So I did. I put on my big girl pants, lifted up my phone and rang and said, hi, you know, I'm in town, this payment's well overdue, I'm just going to pop round now and get payment. And they went, oh yeah, call round now, we'll get that check for you. Especially if you work for bigger clients, actually. They can be the worst sometimes. You know, they're not worrying about the little guy or the freelancer or whatever. And sometimes it can be harder to get money out of them because it goes through their finance department and, you know, your invoice gets lost. So it's so important to send out those reminders, ring the accounts department, ring the client that you did the work with. You can be very nice and very polite about it. But, you know, just say, you know what, I need paid. So no harm in that. Building good relationships with clients. So it's all great doing a lovely job for a client, but what do you do after that first job? And it's so important to remember that you're only ever as good as the last job you did. You know, Christine and I don't think, great, we did one fantastic campaign for that client, happy days, we can put our feet up and, you know what, not really give them a good service because, you know, they'll just think that we're great. You have to put the same heart and soul into every project because you are literally only as good as your last job. Your client will only remember the last project that you did for them. They won't think, oh yeah, 3 years ago they did a really great job for us, but they haven't done a decent piece of work since. You have to have that mentality of every job is important and valuable and worth doing to the best of your ability. And your client will appreciate that level of service. So just again, once you've done a great job for somebody, don't just sail off into the sunset and never pick up the phone to them again. You want to kind of get repeat business with that client. You know, if you get on well together and you want to do more work with them, you know, arrange a debrief and think, you know, just say, can we get like a 5-minute chat? Can we do a wee Zoom? Just want to talk about that job that we did. Find out how you felt about it. Did it go well? Could things have gone better? And just having that chat about, as this is a really important part that a lot of people forget about, is to, you know, do that outcome piece, you know, do the debrief and figure out how the job went. Because you'll learn so much about what the client's experience of working with you was. You'll find out how they felt. They'll figure out if there were stumbling blocks, how you can resolve it for the next time round. And that all just helps to build a good relationship. And being proactive is really important as well. So, you know, if you've got this one particular client and you do, you know, social media posts for them, and that's all that you do for them, and you think this is great, we have a lovely wee relationship, you know, we have a chat every Monday and we do X, Y, and Z and hunky dory, that's all great. But if you don't let that client know about other things that you can do for them, then they probably won't ask. So it's about you being proactive about new products and services that you can bring to the table. And if you're like learning about their business and you think, do you know what, we're doing that social media piece for them, but they so need this done or that done, or they need a rebrand or whatever, then, you know, have that conversation with them and go, you know, we were just wondering if you'd be interested in this. We also do this type of service. We could bring this to the table. And you don't have to bring it like, oh, the hard sell all the time. It's just creating awareness and educating your client about what it is that you do, or, you know, there's this new piece of software out, or we've just done this training program and we now know how to do this. We can offer this to you. Or we've got this new colleague that we collaborate with and they offer this. You know, build your team up, build yourself up, and form this network that you can then sell on to your client, because you're strengthening your own network and you're also strengthening your client as well. So it's working both ways. And then building good relationships. The last one is just giving gifts. Who doesn't love a gift? Whether it's like a box of chocolates or at Christmas, just to say thank you for giving us work all year, or saying, do you know what, you've given us so much work over the last 6 months. We're going to give you a campaign for free. And they will be so appreciative of that, because it's you saying thank you to them for the work and the money that they've given you, and you're giving something back to them. And that goes a million miles. Not necessarily always the box of chocolates, but even giving that like an hour's free time, or, you know, just saying, well, do you know what, I'm going to give you that last wee piece of work for free for being such a loyal client. It really does go a long way. Okay, so so this last one is tips for young designers selling their work. So, you know, it's all about kind of money and getting the balance right. So if what you're selling is your time, i.e. if you're creating designs and the only thing that you have to sell is your time that goes into creating those designs, then work out your hours carefully. You know, really think about how long it takes you to do a project, and be realistic about that, and think about, well, what money do I need to make that work, and work it out from there. And if you're just starting out, factor in gaining experience and learning. So, you know, if you're just graduated from a course, you may not have a huge amount of experience in, you know, designing for clients. And, you know, you can be open with your client about that, because you could have a lot of creativity, but you could say, well, look, you know, for the first 3 or 4 jobs, I'm going to do this for you at X rate. And once, if you're happy with that and we're gaining more experience and we've learned more, then after a period of time, then we'll put the price up. And clients can often be really approachable in that way too. And then if you're worried about payment, or you're not sure about a kind of client's credentials or ability to pay, asking for 50% up front is always really good, and then 50% on completion. So you can say at the outset of the project, look, this is kind of 50% up front, and when we're done and you're happy, and before I hand you over the goods, then we'll get payment that way. And then the last one is, don't forget about paying your own bills as well, because you do have your own overheads and operating costs. And it's really, really important to keep an eye on your cash flow and know what you have coming in and know what you have going out, and making sure that you're meeting all of those bills, and making sure that you're actually still able to pay yourself at the end of the day. Because, you know, if you're not able to make a bit of money for yourself and earn a living, then there's not much point really.
Hi, I'm Emma and I'm the owner of Hunter Paperco. And Hunter Paperco is a luxury letterpress greetings card and stationery brand. And we're based here in Belfast. So I established the brand in 2014, straight out of uni. And just started selling prints and different things that I'd made at uni, and then it developed into the business that it is today. And today we are stocking shops across the world, which we do by selling wholesale, business to business. We're currently building up our e-commerce brand, selling directly to customers, and we're also working towards opening a shop in the future. So I thought I would just talk about our different revenue streams, and then like kind of break down how we sell through each of those. So the first revenue stream we have is wholesale, which is business to business. So that's us literally selling our products to another business for them to sell on, mostly retail shops. And then the second revenue stream is retail, selling directly to the end consumer. And we do this through our own website, through nottonhighstreet.com and etsy.com. And they all kind of feed into each other, and we just manage the whole system together and ship out orders every day. And then the third revenue stream is weddings, which obviously for the last year kind of didn't really happen for a while. So it's nice that that's coming back again. And previously I'd been working on that on a custom basis. So the couple would come to me and we would kind of work through the design process together. But it's like alongside everything else that we've got going on, custom work is really lengthy. So I've decided to move away from custom, and we're now offering semi-custom work, which is already designed. And then we kind of just tweak the designs to suit each individual couple. So that kind of feeds back into the retail arm of the business, where they just go straight onto our website and buy directly. And then we kind of communicate with them after that. Got stuck. So how do we actually get in front of all of these customers? I'll break down each kind of section. So for wholesale, I before COVID would have gone to a lot of trade shows. I've gone to trade shows in London now for 4 years now. And also Birmingham, and I've done a show in New York as well, although I have no plans to go back to America anytime soon. It was so expensive and so tiring. But anyway, so yeah, we do in-person shows twice a year. And then from that, we kind of build up the relationships in person and take that into email relationships. So at the trade shows, we'll take orders and like write out exactly what they want from an order, and then go home and pack that order and ship it to them. And then from that, then we're just building up that relationship online and kind of communicating throughout the year until we see them again in person at a show. Another way that we kind of reach out to those wholesale customers is through posts. So we'll send them out catalogs, samples. We also send them out show mail outs. I've got them here. Can't even see my own screen, so I don't know if you can see them, but so like just kind of promotional like snippets there of what shows we're going to be attending in the next couple of months and what new things we have out, that sort of thing. So yeah, and then as well as that, most recently we've expanded onto a few online wholesale marketplaces. These are all fairly new. So like, for example, Fair is an American one that's recently come over to the UK, and Abound is a European one that's come over to the UK as well. And they're really great just for like putting your whole catalogue onto, and then the wholesale customer will go on and shop the different brands that they're interested in stocking all in one place. So it's kind of like a virtual trade show, which has obviously been brilliant this year when we can't do trade shows. So then moving on to retail, selling direct to customers. The main kind of way that we would sell would be through social engagement. So like building up that relationship and relatability really on social media, getting our customers to know us, me really, in particular. And we do that through like stories, just posting on Instagram mainly. And like even just last night, I was having so many conversations just in direct messages, just kind of chatting to people. And then one of them led on to like them saying, oh, I haven't been on your site in a while, and then going on and buying a few products. So you just never know. Like, it's just nice to kind of be on a more social level with your customers. You never know where that's going to lead to. As well as that, a lot of retail and e-commerce in particular is about driving customers into your website. So we've been focusing a lot on ads in the last year. Google ads have been great for us. I'm learning a lot recently about Facebook and Instagram ads, which has been going okay as well. It's kind of a minefield. And I've just got into Pinterest ads as well. And then as well as that, we get organic traffic from people just recognizing our brands out and about. They might pick up a card in a shop that like our wholesale customers have bought and then put into their shops. And then they will go from there onto our site, or they'll see us on Nottingham High Street or Etsy, and they'll come onto our own site to shop with us. And then lastly, getting in front of wedding clients. I was doing a few wedding shows, obviously, before COVID. That's all stopped for the time being, but that'll be something I pick up again in the future. And I'm also looking into PR as well. So try to get our wedding stationery into magazines. So we'll see how that goes. So getting ready to sell. There's a number of things, if you're a product-based business, that you want to have ready before you start selling, whether it's wholesale or retail. These are both, it's important regardless, really. So good, clear photos. You can get away with doing this yourself, especially nowadays. Your phone photos really do a good job. Just make sure the lighting is great, and you have a really clear, nice, crisp background. But I've been outsourcing photography for years now, and I would really recommend doing that, because you just get the best quality photos that you can, and you can use them for everything then, and you don't have to worry about them being maybe not as, you don't have to worry about the stress of taking photos as well. I hate setting up photography and just spending a day doing that when it's not my expertise is definitely worthwhile to outsource that. As well as that, you want clear, consistent pricing. And pricing is so important that it works for you, it works for the market at large, and it also works for your target customer. So you have to be comfortable with the price that you're selling your products for. If you're selling too cheap or too expensive, that'll just not sit right with you, and you'll know. And it just feels uncomfortable, and you don't want to be doing it. And then within the market at large, you know who your competitors are, you know who you want to be kind of seen alongside. So if you're priced like way different from them, then that will definitely kind of be a big indicator of something not being right. And then you want to be right for your target customer. So if your target customer is a student and you're selling things for way more than they can afford, then that's not going to work either. So you just need to be mindful of all three of those things working together. And then you just want to make everything as easy to navigate as possible. So if they're coming through your site as a retail customer, you just want them to get through the site as quickly and as easily as possible and find what they need to find. And if they're a wholesale customer, you want them to find everything that they need to find as well as easily as possible, and that the process is smooth and they don't have any kind of conflicts along the way. So specifically for getting ready to wholesale, it's kind of a bit more of a complicated process. So for retail, you can kind of just set up your website and get going, or your Etsy or whatever else you're selling on. Whereas for wholesale, there definitely is a lot more to it. But once you've got these things down, it's just the same, really. So when you're wholesaling, you'll want to have a catalog or a line sheet. A catalog is like, as you would expect, like a booklet that you would look through. A line sheet is like a PDF version of that, really. So it would have like thumbnail images of your products and their pricing underneath that, and a product code number if you wanted to include that sort of thing as well. You really want to have clear photography. It's really important to have photography that your wholesale customers can use as well. So they want to be able to upload onto their website, especially now. This might not have been as important in the past, but now all of my wholesale customers are selling online and they really want to have good images that they can easily upload. You want to have samples and you want to kind of price that into your business model as well, that like you can afford to send out samples for free and, you know, just write that cost off. So as well as that, you want to have your pricing right for wholesale pricing. In the UK, there's usually a markup of 2.4. So you would so your wholesale price would be, say it's £1, then you would times that by 2.4. So it would be £2.40 retail price then. And in the UK, it's times 2, but around 2 is really a good markup. And that's what that margin is, what your wholesale customers need to like have their business function really, for them to make money as well in the process. As well as that, you want to know your minimum order value. So at what point, you know, can you make this profitable? There's no point. The whole idea with wholesale is that you're selling a lot more of your products at a cheaper price, but you're like shifting that quantity really. So at what point does it make sense for you? So my minimum order value is £100 on cards because they're such a low value item. But it's just about having enough that like it makes sense to ship that out. And it's worth our time to pack that box of cheaper product really. And then minimum order quantities. That's so for each item, you'll have like a minimum order that you want to sell to wholesale. There's no point in a wholesale buyer buying one card of like each design. They'll just not know if it works for them. So I usually sell cards in sets of 6s. So that's just the quantity that you want to keep in mind. So if you were selling, say dresses, it might be like you would order 2 or 3 because it's like it's a higher value item. But it's just so that you're happy to sell that quantity and they get enough of it into their shop that they know if it's working for them or not. And then as well as that, you want to know your shipping costs. And in the wholesale industry, this is called carriage paid. So that's a lot of wholesale customers expect there to be an amount where you know, you're happy to cover the cost yourself as the seller. So for orders under £150 for me, I ask the customer to pay for that, and orders over £150, we kind of absorb that cost into the sale. So we'll take on that cost, and then you just want to know you know, everything to do with exporting. So so if you're shipping to America, now the EU as well, if there's any tariffs involved, luckily with stationery, there's not a whole lot, but there might be some complications if you're selling, you know, like fur or something like that, or something that kind of, even food, all that sort of thing, it can be really complicated. And then in terms of presentation, you want your products themselves to be ready to sit in a shop on a shelf. So you have to consider your packaging. You know, you have to make sure that product will be handled and can like take the wear and tear of a shop, and also that your packaging perfectly describes what the customer is getting without them actually being able to take it home and fully look at it in a lot of cases. As well as that, then you want to be thinking about your trade show setup. So you can kind of see an example there, but you'll have like a booth, and then you just get like white walls and you just set it up with all of your products. So shelving, whatever displays you're using, catalogs to hand out to any passersby at a trade show, all that comes into consideration when you're getting ready for an in-person show. And then you as well, you really want, I think, part of like you being kind of presentable or being ready for wholesale is just being confident in knowing your stuff, knowing your pricing, knowing enough about your product, all of that sort of stuff. It's really important. So yeah, I just kind of thought I would add this in as well. If you're new to wholesale or you're thinking about wholesale, I know it's kind of a tangent, but as a general rule, you want to take your costs of materials, and that includes your own time for making the product, and double it, and that should get your wholesale price, but that's not always an exact rule. You can add in or take away if you need to, although definitely make sure you're covering your costs. And then, so you would take then your wholesale price and double it or times it by 2.4 to reach your retail price. And like in that equation as well, you should also be considering your place in the market and what your competitors are selling their products for. So that's just a little side note to take away there. So just want to talk a little bit about having confidence in selling. This is definitely something that I struggled with at the start. And way back at the start, when I started my business, I was selling at markets. And I think that was like a crash course in selling, because like local markets, like people will come up and they'll be like, oh, that's too cheap, or that's too expensive, or, you know, they're very frank and very like, they just kind of say exactly what they think. And that can be a good thing, because it just kind of knocks out of you any fear of like selling and approaching people with your work. So it does get easier with practice, and I definitely found that. And yeah, that's sort of like in-person selling is definitely the best way to just knock that fear right out of you. So you want to have your facts ready as well. That definitely like really helps with my confidence. The first trade show I did, I just like wanted to know everything off the top of my head. So whatever question came my way, I just knew everything that was like I just had the answer rolling off my tongue, rather than, there's nothing worse than like, you know, getting frazzled and looking through papers and not knowing the answer. That just makes you feel worse. It doesn't, maybe the person you're speaking to doesn't feel that way, but if you're nervous already, that'll make it worse. So definitely having your facts ready, and you know, knowing all the things that you need to know if you're in person selling. Also just knowing your business and knowing the product inside out. So that's kind of a given as you you know, grow your business and get to know your products more. It's easy for me to like roll off my tongue exactly how each product is made, and like things that customers would want to know. So that's definitely important, and it definitely just improves your confidence. And then, like I was saying, one-to-one selling. So I would have done this a lot at the start as well. When I was working one-to-one with wedding clients, I would like test out where I felt comfortable with pricing. And so like each client, I would be like, is this what I really want to sell this for? Is this like, does this make sense for me? And you would kind of get an idea if like the couple was comfortable with that as well. And it just was a good way to kind of test those boundaries and see where you fit in the market as well, particularly when you're new. And then, so just like, how do you talk about money, particularly at trade shows? I find that like if you already have your pricing in place, you're firm that's what it is. It's kind of easier with products because you decide on the price and that's it. And people don't really question it a lot of the time, unless you're doing a you know, a local market or that sort of thing. So if you go in firm to a trade show and you say, you know, this is my wholesale price, this is my RRP, then people just take it at face value and that's it. And you're really just confidently saying that, and it's up to them if they buy it or not. And then you have to think that the product is worth it as well. So you know, you have to be confident that you're selling it for the right price, and you can really feel this. So if it's off, if it's too expensive or it's too cheap, you'll know, and it's just not a nice feeling either way. So that's really important. And yeah, that's the end of it then. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. I know wholesale is quite a heavy topic, so yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Anna. That was very, very informative. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, just type them into the chat box. I think we have one question so far. So it's for Lisa. Hey, Lisa, do you ever think about what the budget is? Do you ever think asking about what the budget is ever limits you? Sometimes I feel clients have no idea on the value of design or how much it actually costs.
It's a bit of a catch-22 really, because I always find it's the best place to start, because we've gone in blind with projects and done a quote for a client and said, oh, that's going to cost you X amount of pounds. And then they go, oh no, we don't have anything near that kind of budget. So having that conversation around the budget, I suppose it's not a closed question, it's an open question, what kind of budget do you have to play with? And if they say, oh, for example, we've got £2,000 for that project, then it becomes into a conversation about what you can do for them within that. Or you can say to them, well, actually, typically that type of project we would charge out at more than that, or whatever. So one thing, it's about, always a catch-22. It's about having the previous experience of doing projects at a certain rate, knowing typically how much you charge a client for, but also just asking that client from their point of view how much they have to spend on the project. And that value of design and clients not really knowing what it costs, that piece comes in the selling yourself and the educating yourself about the client. So understanding what they do and educating them about what you do as well, that it's not just I'm going to scribble down a logo here on a bit of paper and I'll throw it onto Illustrator and you'll have a logo by the end of the day. It's not about that. I'm quite sure, Jenny, you do this as well, that there's quite a lot of research goes into competitors, peers and competitors, knowing the marketplace for what that client is in, making sure that you're understanding their objectives and their goals. So there's a lot of research goes into design projects. Then there's the conceptualization, which can take a lot of time too. So sometimes explaining your process to the client will educate them in what they're actually getting for their money. And we would always outline that at the proposal stage. So we would always give a very detailed fee proposal and say, if we're designing a brand identity for you, phase one is, a brainstorming workshop with yourselves, looking at your peers and competitors, researching the marketplace, and phase two will be generating design concepts and presenting them to the client. And from that phase, the client will have conversations about which ones they like. You'll then take that away and refine it further. And you'll show brand applications onto everything that they need as well for a brand identity project. So if you talk them through all of the phases that are involved in a project, they'll start to realize, oh my God, it's not just scribbling a logo on a bit of paper and quickly drawing it up and saying, there you go. It's quite an in-depth process. And it's a process that at the end of it will give the client a really valuable product and a really valuable brand for themselves, which will elevate their business. So it's worth that investment. So sorry, that was a very long-winded answer.
Oh, that's great. I actually have a question for Emma. So whenever you were kind of talking at the beginning about all the different requirements for like wholesale, like did you know that straight off the bat, or was it kind of trial and error at the start of knowing the exact criteria?
Yeah, like there was like a big learning curve there. So I knew a good bit of it, but like before I went to a trade show, but even when I first did my first trade show, there was definitely a few things that people were asking that I was a bit unprepared for. But a lot of it just came down to like listening to a lot of podcasts, just basically trying to like learn as much as I could from like at the time, there wasn't really good wholesale courses out there that there is now. And there wasn't that sort of information that was accessible really. So I would even go on to like issue.com and download other people's catalogs just so I knew what other people were doing and what their payment terms were and their terms of business were to kind of inform that sort of thing. So yeah, just a lot of like a crash course that I gave myself really to get to that stage. So,
and I have a question for both of you. Do you guys still get nervous when you get new clients or like big projects, or did you ever get nervous at the beginning?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, for me, like trade shows is the most like in person like interaction that I'd have. So I don't really get nervous, back and forth over email, because there's that like disconnection that makes it a bit easier. But yeah, when you're meeting in person and then they say they're like John Lewis or something, and you're like, oh, I've wanted to be stalked in John Lewis for years. And so you definitely get those nerves. And even it doesn't matter like what client or customer it is, it's still, you still have that kind of buzz, like that nerve. So yeah, definitely, it doesn't go away.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think if you start to lose that wee buzz, then it's maybe time to do something else. So yeah, a little bit of butterflies in the tummy always helps. And especially if it's a client that you really want to work with and have been working towards for a long time, then yeah, it's, you want to do your best for them. So, and it's, just about getting it right and creating that relationship with them as well. So yeah.
I think that's encouraging to hear, because like even in our Dig Deep program, we talk a lot about like when we get new clients and there's that nervousness, but I think there's that assumption the more experienced you are, it all goes away and it becomes like super easy. But it's refreshing to hear that you guys are obviously very experienced and you still get those butterflies.
Yeah. Sure.
I think it's just a sign that you're still doing the right thing, like you said, Lisa, and it's like it's the right step in the right direction to be pushing yourself a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Perfect. I think that's all the questions.
There's questions there.
Oh, is there? Oh, sorry, I completely missed these. Apologies. So the next question is, Emma, is there a specific format or template for catalogs, line sheets for selling wholesale?
There's not necessarily a specific format, but a lot of people stick to quite a simple grid format. So I have a catalogue here. I'll just quickly show you. And basically it's like you just lay out your products in a grid. I don't know if you can see that quite so easily. So yeah, you just like clearly put like thumbnails of your products, and then within your catalogue you want to have obviously the product name. I put SKU codes, which is, I don't know what that stands for actually, but it's like your unit code of your, it's stock keeping unit. That's what it is. And so if you have like a SKU code for every product, which we do, then you put that in as well, which is really helpful for them ordering. Like if you have 2 cards that say "To my lovely dad," but they're different designs, and they'll refer to the SKU code. And then as well as that, I usually put in the back our payment terms that we expect to be paid within 30 days. The first orders we expect to be paid up front and that sort of thing. And as well as that, obviously the wholesale price and the retail price. So as long as you're including those sorts of things and the terms of business that you set out, then that's really the most important part of it.
Perfect. The next question is for Emma. What would you say is the best approach other brands or customers in social media to build relationships and reliability?
So like I don't like reach out and like I would follow brands and people that I'm interested in Instagram just as I would as a normal like personal Instagram really. So I just use it really organically, but I think for customers and for other brands to kind of be able to relate to us, I think it's important to be showing up and showing them what I'm doing within my day-to-day. So yesterday I was like mixing ink to print, so I was like showing the whole process of that. So yeah, it's not necessarily about like reaching out, but unless like that happens organically, but just kind of like putting yourself out there really, so on stories and that sort of thing, just sharing what you're up to really. That's all. And I'm really not the best at it, but I do try.
Brilliant. The next question again is for Emma. In terms of stocking other stationery brands under your business, what is the best way you find to approach those other makers with the means of wanting to stock them? Did you find this easier as an already established business?
So does that mean it's the best way to find to approach those other makers? So like other brands that I'm stocking, or
I think it's I think Emily is asking, is interested also selling either stationery or other people's brands. So I think
okay. So like I kind of like I started by like selling my stuff to other people. And then I kind of took those relationships that I'd like, that way of relationship building, and moved it into to buying other people's stuff. So sorry, I'm just reading the question again. I'm just completely like, my brain's just frozen. Did you find it easier as an already established business? Yeah, I think like, because I was already like, I already had that brand established, and I was you know, stocked in so many other places, like refer to that definitely made it easier. And also that I was so familiar with wholesale terms and that sort of thing. But I think like, you know, anyone's flattered when you know, someone approaches them and says, I'd love to stock your work. So I wouldn't worry too much about the lack of experience there, really. It's just yeah, people are always like, it's another customer for them, really. So they're happy to talk you through the process, and if there's any terms that you don't understand, or like certain things that they're talking about that you're just not sure of, like, and ask all the questions. Everybody's more than happy to talk it through with you.
Perfect. One more question for Lisa. Do your customers find you via your website or social media or word of mouth?
Oh my goodness. Christine and I will confess to this, that we are like the shoemaker whose children have no shoes and it's terrible. We are so busy kind of designing brands and kind of digital platforms for other clients that we neglect our own. So we're in the middle of redoing our website, and it was meant to go live at the end of January, and work took over, and we're still trying to get over that line. And so in a way, we're not practicing what we preach to other clients, and yeah, I'll stop talking about that. I just need to get on with that. But a lot of our work comes from referrals. So if you do one good job for somebody, word will spread, and someone will say, oh, I hear you did a really great job for them. Could you help us with this? You know, and it's about kind of getting your word of mouth for us, for sure. So yeah, and just back to that thing, you're only as good as your last job, really. It tends to be how we operate, and then we get known for being good in kind of certain areas, and yeah, that's how it works for us.
Thank you so much. So I think that is all the questions. Thank you so much, Emma and Lisa. It's been very informative, and I think it's really good to hear from two different industries and two different perspectives. But there was a lot of overlap on how to sell and the confidence to have as well. And I think, like, me and Christine talk about this all the time, that women predominantly struggle more with confidence of being confident in business. So it's really good to see both of you showing an example of that, and I know that I've taken so much from this conversation. So we will be sending out a questionnaire for everyone to fill out just to give some feedback, and then we'll also be putting this recording onto the website along with the presentation. So yeah, that's us for this evening, and yeah, this is the end of our Womenfolk workshops as well. So it's been lovely to meet you all, and thank you all for coming, and thanks again for Emma and Lisa. So I hope you guys have a good night and take care.